Good afternoon, New Brunswick, and welcome to the New Brunswick Today show for today, Friday, February 10th. I'm your host, Charlie Cradaville. It is 12:19 right now, and on today's show we've got a whole lot of big news stories to share with you, many of which you're only going to be able to learn about right here on this show. It's another very cold one here today in downtown New Brunswick, just 24 degrees right now. No more snow expected. It should be sunny, but don't expect that to mean it's going to warm up. The low tonight is going to be 25 degrees. The high today only 31 degrees. That means it'll be below the freezing point all day. So please be careful if you're out there and you're driving or walking around. Watch out for ice. And do us a favor, do yourself a favor, and do your friends a favor, and go ahead and share this live video right now with your networks on Facebook and social media. We've got a lot of breaking news to share with you today. Our top story today, an update on the latest corruption scandal at the New Brunswick water utility. These are the two men who were criminally charged with official misconduct back in December. Joseph DeBonis and William Ortiz. They both worked at the authority for a long time, the utility for a long time. DeBonis was also charged with tampering with records, while Ortiz is charged with bribery. All of it over one $2,000 bribe paid by some mystery person to have their water bill illegally lowered. Well, these are serious charges, of course. Remember, official misconduct is a second-degree charge here in New Jersey with a minimum 5-year prison sentence if you're found guilty. Now, both men will have the first of what might be many days in court on February 27th, right behind me. But New Brunswick Today has learned that the judge that will handle that court appearance, which is known as a pre-indictment conference, will be none other than Benjamin Buca, the former New Brunswick Planning Board lawyer who our criminal governor, Chris Christie, recently made a Superior Court judge. Wow, what a coincidence that the judge who drew this case is Judge Buca, perhaps the only judge in the courthouse located behind me to have worked for the New Brunswick city government, the same government that employs the defendants. And Buca worked for that government for decades. But wait, there's more. An anonymous tipster helped make New Brunswick Today aware that William Ortiz, one of those defendants, is married to an employee of the judiciary, specifically the secretary to Judge Craig Corson, who was recently transferred to serve on the bench right here in Middlesex County in the courthouse behind me. This, of course, raises serious questions about conflict of interest. We were already suspicious when we learned back in December that law enforcement was filing those criminal complaints against DeBonis and Ortiz in the Middlesex County Court and not somewhere else. And at that time, Peter Azeltine, the spokesperson for the New Jersey Attorney General's office, told us that this was filed in Middlesex County. He said, quote, "I am not aware of any conflict in that regard." Well, we at New Brunswick Today think that now there's several conflicts regarding this case, and we brought that to the attention of the New Jersey Attorney General's office just this morning, and well, we got a quick response, but not an encouraging one. The quote from Mr. Azeltine is, "We do not have any comment after we raise these issues." So that's all for this story today, but this is only the beginning. We'll, of course, be doing an article about this shady situation. Plus, if the case still moves forward as planned, you better believe we'll be in that courtroom on February 27th for that pre-indictment conference, and we'll see where the case goes from there. In other New Brunswick news, the City of New Brunswick's Embattled Housing Authority scored the third lowest in the entire United States in a recent assessment. The PHAS, the Public Housing Assessment System, is the federal government's way of overseeing and keeping track of its hundreds of local housing authorities. The scores in that assessment are out of 100, and New Brunswick scored an abysmal 41. The only two agencies in the country that scored lower were Irvington Housing Authority right here in New Jersey and the Gary, Indiana Housing Authority. Now, of course, New Brunswick Today has been aggressively covering the NBHA since 2015, and we even sued the Housing Authority last year for violating the New Jersey Open Public Records Act. Now, what's most interesting is that this information has been public for some time. It was released by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development on March 11th of 2016, almost a year ago now. And in this assessment, the authority was deemed to have the worst classification possible. They were rated as troubled, and that their capital fund was troubled as well. Yet there has been no public discussion of this terrible assessment at any of the New Brunswick Housing Authority board meetings, and we've been to every one, or any of the city council meetings. In fact, at the October 19th city council meeting, the city's finance director gave a report about the NBHA to the council, where he said nothing but nice things. He said that the authority has expanded and that they are, quote, a fairly efficient organization. We asked the mayor's office to respond to those PHAS scores, the abysmal ranking that the Housing Authority received. We asked on Wednesday, and the mayor's office has still not responded to our inquiry. We'll keep you posted. Stay tuned to the website for more on that. Our next story comes from Perth Amboy. Perth Amboy's police department will soon be getting one of these. It's a MRAP. That's a military vehicle that the city is obtaining from the federal government. New Brunswick Today's Jennifer Goldberg is working on that story that you'll soon be seeing on the newbrunswicktoday.com website. The original price for this mine-resistant vehicle was $65,000, but the Perth Amboy city government bought it for just $6,500. Just basically have to pay the shipping costs, and that's through the controversial federal 1033 program, which gives municipal and county law enforcement access to military-grade equipment such as aircraft, weapons, and vehicles. This MRAP vehicle, on its way to Perth Amboy, had been used during the Iraq War. It is 8.5 feet wide, 10 feet tall, and weighs 43,500 pounds. Now, some residents raised concern about why the city would need such a heavy-duty vehicle and for what purpose or purposes it might be used. And that all went down at a January 11th council meeting, according to a report in the Amboy Guardian. The heightened militarization of local police departments around the country has been a hotly contested issue in recent years, as police have inappropriately used tear gas or posted snipers on top of armored vehicles like MRAPs, and even unleashed dogs on protesters who are often out there protesting police abuse of power. For their part, the department had a lieutenant at that meeting. He responded to these concerns by saying that, quote, "This vehicle can be used to transport personnel to a protest site, but we can't use it against the protesters. It can also be used in hazardous weather rescue," the lieutenant said, and also noted it could be used in a crisis situation, according to that Guardian report. And now New Brunswick Today's Chris Roberts has the story of a new documentary that focuses on Seabright, New Jersey. Bad Tidings is the creation of Rutgers graduate Dan Natal. He's a documentarian who chose to focus on the Jersey Shore as a way to explain climate change issues to his audience in real terms. And that film will be released at Rutgers this Sunday, February 12th. The film looks at the effects that climate change has, including inducing sea level rise and what those changes are going to mean for Seabright, which is a relatively affluent barrier island that was devastated by Hurricane Sandy. In the aftermath of Sandy, many residents who saw their homes destroyed decided to employ techniques like actually physically raising those homes higher up or reinforcing them rather than leaving behind the town they love. But Sandy's effects persist in Seabright even today, where there are 75 families still displaced by the storm, nearly 10% of the town's population, according to Mayor Dina Long. Now, the documentary, whose producers include Luis Cabrera, Dina Seidel, and Richard Ludischer, also examines public opinion in Seabright about Sandy and the projections for sea level rise. The premiere of the film is this Sunday at 7 p.m. It's in room 105 of Voorhees Hall, which is at 71 Hamilton Street, right here in New Brunswick on the Rutgers University campus. Tickets are just between $9 and $12, and the event will include an intro and a Q&A session with the filmmaker. But our top story today is New Brunswick's 7-term mayor, James Cahill. He's come under fire from the New Brunswick community and immigrant rights activists across New Jersey after his office told a Rutgers student newspaper that New Brunswick is not a sanctuary city. And we'll be talking about that on today's program a little later. The Daily Targum's Camilo Montoya reported that, and it actually sparked a massive protest on the steps of City Hall on Tuesday. So props to Mr. Montoya and the Daily Targum for holding New Brunswick's leaders accountable. And, well, for Mayor Cahill, for his part, he took a page out of President Trump's playbook and blamed the media. Now, we actually asked Mayor Cahill about his views on whether or not New Brunswick should be a sanctuary for immigrants on January 17th. And here's what he had to say then. And I want to talk about the thousands of immigrants that are here in New Brunswick and, your views on that sector of the population here. What are you going to do to protect them? Do you consider New Brunswick to be a sanctuary? What do you think is going to be in store for them?
Well, since I've been in office, we've had a very simple policy with regard to immigrants and non-immigrants in the city, and that is, if you live here and you abide by the rules of citizenship, that you are one of us, and that you should enjoy all of the protections that our government can provide. The declaring of being a sanctuary city, I think, is more form over substance, because the impact of a sanctuary city is to protect the rights of the people that live there, and we've done that now for 20 plus years.
Including undocumented?
People
who don't have their papers?
Including undocumented. So we will do nothing different than what we have done every day during the course of my administration, and that's protect the rights of all those that live here.
Okay. And one of the big issues for the undocumented community is driving privileges. It's something a lot of folks came to a city council meeting back in 2015 about. Tell me, is that something you support? Do you think New Jersey should offer driving privileges to undocumented?
I believe I actually wrote a letter to state officials at some point in time in support of that. Look, I think it's silly for government to put its head in the sand and act like the undocumented residents are not here. For decades, 30, 40, 50 years, the federal government, the state government, everybody has turned a blind eye to the fact that these people were coming in to the United States. And they certainly were okay with these residents providing benefit to the economy that they did, for whatever purpose it is. And it didn't matter if you were a Democrat or Republican. The federal government has not been able to foster a policy on this in 50 years, that it's been an issue. And in 50 years, I'm not sure that's the exact time, but it certainly seems like it. So for all of a sudden to act like these people are to be treated significantly different, particularly if they've been here for 30, 40 years, are now in their second, third, not impossible fourth generations, just becomes an exercise in futility, I think. So, driver's license, how do they get to work? Do they jump in the back of a van? Do they somehow walk to work? Do you not want them to work? Do you want them not to have a job and to be a drain on society in some way, or do you want them to be contributing members of society? And then if you get them if they do have a job, then don't you want them to be able to access that job in a way that is safe? Secondly, if you get them licenses, then they can get insured.
Right.
And it is a better protection for the rest of us.
For everybody.
So I think, I'm hopeful that the dialogue on immigration with a new president will be fruitful. And I'm hoping it's not going to focus just on whether or not a wall is built or not, but what's in the best interest of the United States and all the people that make up the United States. documented, undocumented, and where do we go from here?
And welcome back to the New Brunswick Today Show. We'll have more on this Tuesday's Sanctuary protest, including a video taken by Jason Liebman later in the show. But now we are joined by Zayaja. Hello, one of our newest reporters here. A couple stories on the college avenue. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Charlie.
What do you got for us? What do you got for us today?
As many Rutgers students have noticed, the AIM College on College Avenue campus has been since the end of December after Rutgers decided not to complete the company's license. Even though it'll be a change for the community not to see the store in that spot. Luckily, for very similar Panera Bread is on its way. According to University News and Media Relations Jeffrey Tolvin, university officials are looking forward to having a Panera Bread on the College Avenue and Bush campuses. Though it has not been confirmed, some students speculate that the Panera Bread location on the Bush campus will take place of the empty space in the Bush Student Center, which was formerly a Burger King. There's no confirmation about when renovations will begin for either location, but we'll keep you updated. College Avenue lost another one of its coffee shops, at least temporarily. The new Starbucks opened recently in a massive new development known as The Yard, but earlier this month, the store abruptly shut down without explanation. We checked to see this morning if the location was open, but it is not, despite reports that it will reopen later this week. Christopher Palladino, the president of DevCo, had previously said in an email that DevCo anticipates Starbucks to reopen by the end of this week, but that did not happen, and this morning Palladino informed New Brunswick Today that they are waiting for supplies and rounding up their employees. While we're on the subject of The Yard, an interesting thing that happened this week is that the 15-story apartment building in The Yard has been renamed after women's rights activist, leader, and former slave Sojourner Truth. Truth was originally owned by the father of Rutgers' first president, and advances like this in regard to recognition are important to the Rutgers community because it not only gives credit where credit is due, but it allows students on campus who identify as Black or African American to feel as though our roots and our people are recognized. Other name changes on the campus include the Old Queens Walkway, which is now Wills Walkway, and also the Kilmer Library has been renamed to James Dixon Carr, which was one of the first African American graduates here in New Brunswick. Back to you, Charlie.
Thanks so much, Zayaja, for that excellent report. And we'll be seeing a lot more of Zayaja on the show. Before we go any further, the footage from this Tuesday's protest at City Hall. It was a chilly day, but despite the cold weather, there was a great turnout, and our own Jason Liebman captured this footage and spoke to some of those in attendance. Check it out.
Why are you coming out today for the protest?
Well, I volunteer to teach English as a second language, but for the last month or so, our attendance has been very low, and I can only assume it's because, like I've read, people don't want to be going out in the streets if they're feeling insecure about their position here.
Okay, and how would New Brunswick becoming a sanctuary city help with that?
By giving them a greater sense of safety, they'll be able to actually feel able to access the services that the city provides. I mean, the mayor is saying that, oh, the city provides all these things, but if the people don't feel safe accessing the services, that's a little different from having meaningful access.
And what does it mean for a city to be a sanctuary city? For people who don't know? Or
my understanding is that it means that the city does not devote any financial resources, any police time devoted to turning over information. We don't ask at checkpoints about immigration status. So that's sort of my general understanding.
tienen. Hay muchas otras familias que fueron invitadas a hablar hoy, pero ellos tienen miedo de las consecuencias que pueden sufrir si luchan por sus derechos o de sus familiares. And these people are afraid to talk. They don't want to come and talk. They don't want to show because they think that ICE is going to come and detain them. Many people is right now looking into the videos, but they're afraid to show up. So that's what I'm saying. Thank you for being here and showing that support.
And when we say never again, in our backyard, when they come for us, we say no. And I'm here to tell you a little bit how we can do that. Besides just showing up to great events like this, what we did today, again, for those of you who weren't here, we delivered an issue of demands in order to get the mayor, the council, and the police to do what we want, and that's not to use city resources to help out federal immigration officers. You guys should have gotten these flyers. They were passing around. You can text RESIST to 31996 and stay up to date with Working Families Party, and they will keep you guys up to date of all the action. We also have some people with these really cool nifty forms. They're called voter registration forms. We cannot wait till 2020, and we do not have to wait till 2018. We do have an election this year. In June, we have primaries. We can go and we can find the leaders who are going to stand up for our immigrant brothers and sisters, and we're going to support them. If you are not registered to vote, please raise your hand. That is awesome. Let's give it up for If, however, you have friends or family who are not registered to vote, tell them they gotta vote, and they gotta show up to their primaries on June 6th, not only the November election. Thank you again so much, all the organizers, for doing this. What do we want? Sanctuary! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Sanctuary! When do we want it? Now!
Tell me why you're out here today.
I'm out here for a protest to make New Brunswick a sanctuary city, but I also think that the whole U.S. should be basically unenforceable against undocumented people.
And what would it mean for New Brunswick to be a sanctuary city?
New Brunswick would finally be a city that is safe for the people it's supposed to serve in one way.
33% of people who live in New Brunswick are immigrants, and if there's, if law enforcement and authority have a hostile attitude towards immigrants, it would make New Brunswick a very unpleasant place to live. I used to live here, I love this town, and I don't want to see this happen, especially in the changing political climate.
And is there anything else you'd like anyone who may or may not know what a sanctuary city is or not be from here, what should they know to help?
So a sanctuary city is a city whose local law enforcement does not cooperate with ICE detainer requests. Usually what happens is that if people in the community are afraid of arrest, they will not cooperate with law enforcement in investigations, and that makes for like a really fractious community, and it's just not good. So I don't want to see people feel unsafe in their own homes, basically.
What is a sanctuary city?
A sanctuary city is one that resists, for one thing, ICE intrusions here, but with the world the way it is right now, any bans on immigrants and enforcing taking immigrants away.
Okay, and why did you come out here today?
To support the effort, because I think that showing crowds constantly is starting to do something, and we're going to keep it up.
Okay, and any final thoughts that you might want people to know about the sanctuary city or the cause that you're fighting for?
In New Brunswick, when people tell their kids horror stories, it's about ICE, and that needs to stop.
Thank you very much. Can you tell me why you came out here today?
Yeah, I made a promise to myself that we would never stand idly by and watch as any person was targeted and removed from their homes or targeted in a physical, damaging way. We've seen this happen time and time again in other countries like Darfur, Armenia, Libya, Syria, but this is really the first time in our backyard that someone of horrific power is calling for a ban on Muslims, on immigrants. He wants to kick them out and deport them. He wants to use our tax dollars to do this disgusting work. And we're here today to tell the mayor, who's a Democrat, to stand up for his people, to do what his people want, and to make this city a safe place from Trump and his administration.
So what would it mean for New Brunswick to be a sanctuary city?
So what we're asking of Mayor Cahill and the rest of the administration is to do 3 easy things. The mayor is going to issue an executive order making this a welcoming and fair city. He's going to issue a police directive to make sure that the New Brunswick Police Department don't use their resources to do the work of the federal immigration services. And we're going to pass a resolution through the City Council to demand the same thing, that the city remains safe and welcoming to all people.
Thank you. And is there anything else that you would want anyone to know about sanctuary cities, about New Brunswick?
Yeah.
This moment's for you.
Trump is threatening towns and cities all across America like New Brunswick, and if what we have to do to stand on principle is to find a way to pay for certain public utilities, we'll have to do this. Principle over politics and principle over money.
What do we do? Stand up, fight back. What do we do? Stand up, fight back. When immigrants are under attack, what do we do? Stand up, fight back. What do we do? Stand up, fight back. What do we do? Stand up, fight back. When immigrants are under attack, what do we do? Stand up, fight back. What do we do? Stand up, fight back. Get up, get down. New Brunswick is an immigrant town. Get up, get down. Get up. No Trump, no KKK, no fascist USA. 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 No Trump, no KKK, no fascist USA.
And welcome back to the New Brunswick Today Show. Thanks so much to everyone who's been supporting our campaign to grow and strengthen New Brunswick today. We are proud to be the only bilingual community newspaper serving the city of New Brunswick. We're also the only local media outlet that does a live news broadcast like this one. Now, unfortunately, we haven't been able to release a new issue since December 1st, and we depend on reader support to be able to make this operation work. So thank you so much to the 35 folks who have already become members of New Brunswick Today. That's the best way to support our work, and you'll also get the newspaper mailed to you anywhere in the country. To become a sustaining member is really easy, and it'll help us keep holding our leaders accountable. Just go to members.newbrunswicktoday.com today and become a member. You can see we're 18% of the way to our goal thanks to those 35 folks who become members. We want more of you to join our team and support the work we're doing. So please do that so we can keep doing this show, keep covering these protests, and keep putting out this bilingual community newspaper so folks can know what's going on. Now, we talked about the Targum article that sparked this protest by Camilo Montoya. The Targum is, of course, the student newspaper, and they really shook things up with this article that led with the headline that New Brunswick was not a sanctuary city, according to the mayor's office. Now, this is Mayor Jim Cahill, who you're looking at here. He has been the mayor since I was 5 years old, in kindergarten, 1991. He became the mayor. He's won 7 elections to keep being the mayor, and hasn't decided whether or not he's going to run for an 8th term yet. But this article really shook things up for him. It was not only did it spark a mass protest, it actually sparked a big announcement from the city. This came out just around the time that the Super Bowl was kicking off on February 5th, Super Sunday, and it was titled, "What is a Sanctuary City?" In this, this is where the mayor and his administration kind of sort of blamed the Targum here. So this is the quote we've got here. A quote, a recent article in the Targum unfortunately may have resulted in an inaccurate portrayal of the city of New Brunswick's policies and stances on issues involving immigration. Interesting way of phrasing it, interesting title, interesting that they were working over the weekend to get this statement together. And this is also a statement that actually comes from the mayor himself. It's signed by Jim Cahill, the mayor. And in this, he tries to make the case that even though he doesn't call New Brunswick a sanctuary city, is not willing to use that term, that the city's been friendly to its immigrant population, despite refusing or declining to use that term. So he talks about establishing bilingual crime watch meetings. He talks about getting a sick leave law passed that includes workers at temp agencies where many immigrants work. He also touts that New Brunswick was the city that passed the first anti-wage theft ordinance in New Jersey, one that has helped immigrant workers recover thousands of dollars in unpaid wages. And he also says that the council and the mayor have supported the New Jersey Dream Act, which did pass, and another policy that hasn't passed yet, which would be to offer driving privileges to undocumented residents. And that is a policy that he says the city supports. It would need to be passed by the state. And something else that Mayor Cahill points to is interesting. This is the first public acknowledgement of this, comes in the wake of this controversy, is that he says that the city is, quote, preparing to implement a municipal ID program and becoming one of the few municipalities in the state to do so. So that's an interesting statement there, because we've been asking about whether or not the city would implement such a policy. It's something that a lot of folks in the community want. It's something that actually is a public safety issue, because you have folks who don't have proper identification to show to people they might need to show to it for various purposes, whether that's dealing with the police or renting an apartment or any of the other things you might need an ID for. Many folks are left with paperwork that's not sufficient to do those things, or not the best way to do those things. So now this is the first public statement from City Hall that they're working on this. We have heard from some who they've been collaborating with that this has been in the works. This isn't just something that came out of the blue, but they did make this public announcement as a result of that Targum article and the ensuing, I guess, inaccurate portrayal that may have resulted from that article. But now, some positive steps. The city promising that they are, quote, preparing to implement a municipal ID program. They would join cities like Perth Amboy and even smaller towns like Roselle in offering that service to anybody who wants it. Basically be done through City Hall. You'd be able to get a proper photo ID that would hopefully enable you to do more things in this life. So we'll keep you posted as that program rolls out, but also as the discussion evolves. You saw some of the folks telling Jason why they came to that protest on Tuesday. It was quite a big showing, the biggest protest at City Hall in about a year at least. And, well, we might just see more protests. Of course, there's a city council meeting coming up on February 15th. That's this coming Wednesday. It'll be at City Hall at 6:30 p.m. And from what we heard, a lot of the folks who were out there protesting are going to show up there and make their feelings known about how this is an important thing for New Brunswick to declare itself a sanctuary city. You heard some people saying immigrants are actually more fearful than ever before now with the Trump administration, the executive orders that they adopted or implemented, and actually just last night were delayed and stayed again by a federal court. Not ready to let be glanced over the land. Still not getting enough information. Sometimes even going to their homes because they're afraid that as undocumented immigrants they be captured, and so a lot of folks think that even if it's just symbolic, calling New Brunswick sanctuary city, a long way to easing the fears of the thousands immigrant who they say are fear in fear. So we will keep working on this story. Ramirez, looking into cases involved, as well as our great reporters, Giselle Cardone, also to leaders and covering advocacy on. So we're gonna stay tuned today.com for information on this really of issue and New Brunswick sanctuary city. Thanks for joining us today. Team here, Giselle, excellent report, and keep today website. Please support our campaign for New Brunswick Today. Please become a member today, members.newbrunswicktoday.com, so we can keep doing this work and keep spreading the good word. Thanks again for joining us today, and stay tuned next week for more on this story.